Beth Parchin is devastated after recently losing her husband Owen Parchin. She spends a good part of her time drinking, going through Owen's belongings and thinking about her deceased husband. At night she lies alone in the bedroom, running her hand through the empty space in bed when she hears a knock. She gets out of bed and climbs down the staircase to check, but she does not find anyone around. Beth happens to be a high school teacher. So the following morning, a woman named Becky McLaughlin, mother of one of Beth's students, visits Beth in the classroom. Becky wants to find out why her son got a C grade in speech, and Beth explains that the boy missed his presentation, and even though she asked him to come back so he can make it up, she was not available when the boy came. Beth goes on to explain to Becky that her husband shot himself in the mouth and she has been grieving the loss. In the end, Becky's son gets a B grade, and while leaving, Becky tells Beth she's sorry for her loss. Beth returns home later and finds her neighbor Mel climbing up from the staircase that leads to the lake behind her house. Mel tells Beth he decided to help cover her boat due to the weather. Mel tells Beth he just has to be kind to her, especially considering how supportive Beth and her now deceased husband Owen were when he lost his spouse. At night, Beth finds a book containing reversed floor plans for their house. Later, while in bed, a song starts playing downstairs and Beth suddenly wakes up. She receives a message from Owen's phone asking her to come down. When she dials the phone, a voice like Owen's asks her to look out through the window. Beth does and finds what appears to be Owen standing naked in the lake. Owen turns to stare at her, but she soon wakes up and figures out it's a dream. Later, she turns on Owen's phone and confirms that there was no new message from him, just the last message he sent before he passed. Then she goes through some of the pictures in Owen's phone and finds a picture of a woman in a bookstore who looks like her. She suspects that Owen was having an affair with someone else. She shows the picture of the woman in Owen's phone to her friend Claire, and Claire says it's a picture of Beth. Beth asks Claire to look closer. So Claire zooms in the photo and tells Beth she's the one or it's a woman who looks like her. Beth then confirms that she doesn't have the top the woman is wearing in the photo. Claire tries to convince Beth that this isn't something she should overthink. She should not allow things like this to weigh her down. Later, while having drinks with Claire and two others, Beth brings up the topic of ghosts and asks her if they believe in ghosts. Claire says yes, that she believes in ghosts, and Beth goes on to explain that she has been feeling some ghostly presence in her house for some time now. She talks about some of the unusual dreams she's been having. Beth also talks about how she's been sleepwalking, and asks if sleepwalking is something contagious because Owen had also begun to sleepwalk a year or two after he built their house and now she's experiencing the same thing. They go on to discuss Owen's death, and Beth reads out Owen's note which says, "You were right. There is nothing. Nothing is after you. You're safe now." Beth says she doesn't know what Owen meant in the note, and they are all confused about the note. Claire accompanies Beth back to her house. Beth then reveals to Claire that she had lied about not having an idea of what Owen's note meant. She then tells Claire about how she clinically died in a car crash in Tennessee when she was 17. In that moment of death, all she saw was nothing. But when people asked her from time to time what she saw when she died, she always said she doesn't remember because she didn't want to disappoint. Owen was the only person she told the truth about seeing nothing. And Owen really never believed her. Perhaps that's what Owen was talking about in the note. Again, Beth asks Claire if she believes in ghosts, and this time Claire says no, that she doesn't really believe in ghosts, that she earlier answered yes to the question because she wanted to sound nice. Claire goes on to ask Beth if she wants her to stay, but Beth says maybe she could just stay until she falls asleep. Then Beth wakes up suddenly and feels the presence of a supernatural force in the house. Claire is no longer in the house, and now Beth hears the strange voice that sounds like Owen saying the door. Beth steps out of the house and outside she finds some frightened women running across the woods and diving into the lake. At the other side of the lake there is a well-lit house. Then the voice says to her, "The boat." Beth climbs down the stairs and goes closer to the boat. She then sees what appears to be a covered corpse in the boat. She steps back, as if to return to her house, and then finds some bloody footprints. Soon the force pulls her into the boat and takes her to the other side of the lake, where the well-lit house is situated. It's a reversed copy of her house. Beth steps out of the boat, and as she stares at and moves closer to the reversed house, the voice tells Beth that she's dreaming. Staring through the window, Beth sees some women who resemble her in the house, and then there is Owen, trying to kiss one of the women, but the woman pushes him away. Beth unlocks the house and pushes the door open. She finds herself lying asleep on the couch. Then she wakes up on the couch and finds her door open. Later she goes through Owen's laptop and discovers more pictures of women who look quite like her. In the woods, she meets Mel walking his dog. Mel asks what she's doing there in the woods, and Beth says she's looking for something, a house. Mel tells her there are no houses here in the woods. Beth explains that she thought she saw a house last night. Or maybe she's just being silly. Mel feels Beth is not really well, and invites Beth for lunch. Beth accepts but decides to walk around the woods for a little longer before coming over. Beth soon discovers the reversed house Owen was working on. But unlike the one she saw in the dream, this one has not been completed, and there's no one in it. While going through the house, Beth discovers a strange statue which she takes with her to Mel's house. Now she believes that Mel knows about the house but didn't want her to see it, so she confronts Mel about the house and statue. Mel says he doesn't know about the house, but admits that he used to see Owen wandering in the woods in the middle of the night from time to time. And once, he saw Owen with a woman. He thought the woman was Beth, but it turned out to be someone else. He didn't tell Beth any of this because he truly felt that Owen changed and that everything was going well after that. Beth returns home, and again she starts going through Owen's belongings. This time she recognizes the strange statue in one of Owen's books. She equally finds out the name of the bookstore where Owen had bought the book from. Beth visits the bookstore, and there she finds the woman in Owen's phone. Her name is Madeline, and she happens to be working in the bookstore. Beth speaks with Madeline and tells her she found her photo in her husband's phone. The woman looks frightened and doesn't seem to understand what Beth is talking about, so Beth tells her the name of her husband, Owen Parchin. She then explains to Madeline that Owen eliminated himself, and Madeline expresses shock over his death. Beth accuses Madeline of sleeping with Owen, but she says she didn't, and there really wasn't much that existed between her and Owen. Later, Beth tells Claire about Madeline, the reversed house she saw in her dream, and the women whose photos she saw in Owen's laptop. Claire tries to discourage Beth from going through Owen's belongings since that is not likely to make her feel better. Claire asks her to stay away from her lakeside house for a while. Beth agrees with her and says she'll just go back to the house, pack some of her belongings and then leave. When Beth returns to her apartment, she starts speaking to the supernatural force haunting her. She tells it to come out now and say whatever it wanted to tell her, for she is leaving the house tonight. Beth hears a knock, opens the door downstairs and finds Madeline about to leave and calls her back. Madeline explains to Beth that she is able to locate the house because Owen had once brought her to the house when he was alive. Beth leads Madeline into the house, and they have some drinks while discussing. Madeline tells Beth she dreamt of her shortly after they met at the bookstore. She goes on to explain to Beth how Owen took her to the house he was building, showed her the strange statue and tried to eliminate her. She tells Beth she's sure Owen truly felt guilty about cheating on her. After Madeline leaves, Beth goes to Owen's reversed house in the woods. She accidentally breaks a floorboard and discovers some human remains underneath. Frightened, she runs back to her house and tries to call Claire, but she's not available at the time, so she leaves her a voicemail. Later, a song starts playing downstairs while she's having her shower. But the song stops playing as soon as she's out of the bathroom. Beth starts crying profusely because she misses Owen. Beth starts to feel the presence of the invisible force. She hugs the force, believing it is Owen. But the voice reveals that it is not Owen. Now frightened, Beth pulls out of the hug and tries to run away, but the door is locked. Then the force starts to show her visions of Owen attacking and eliminating women who look like her. The voice reveals to Beth that it is nothing, exactly what she saw when she died years back. It has had its eyes on her ever since and has asked Owen to bring her back to it, but Owen tricked it by killing other women. The force continues to haunt Beth through the night. In the morning, Claire arrives at Beth's house but does not find her. Instead, she finds her house scattered. Claire looks through the window and finds Beth in the boat holding a handgun. She calls out to Beth in such a loud voice that draws Mel's attention. Claire enters the lake and swims to the boat. She pulls Beth out of the boat, jolting her back to consciousness. The two women now swim to the dock. Mel, who is standing nearby, stares at the boat for a moment, turns back to Beth who is still staring at the boat and tells her there is nothing there. "I know," Beth says.